What is up, everybody? Welcome into Shout, a Buffalo football podcast on location here at Highmark Stadium. The Bills across the street today at the training center finished Bills rookie minicamp. We got a chance to take our first look. Maxwell Hairston, TJ Sanders, Jordan Hancock, and many other Bills rookie players, tryout players. We're going to get into all of that on this episode of Shout. He's Ryan Talbot. I am Matt Parrino. We are brought to you by the National Comedy Center in Jamestown, New York. The National Comedy Center is the perfect day trip or weekend trip for the entire family. One of the most interactive museums in the country. This is a museum experience like no other, featuring comedy's biggest hits, greatest legends. It's a day filled with laughter. Ryan, we cannot wait to get out to the Comedy Center.
Pumped to get there, Matt. Over 50 exhibits, including a brand new Johnny Carson exhibit that I can't wait to see.
All right. Speaking of what people can't wait to see, number 31, Maxwell Hairston. Obviously, rookie training camp. We'll get into his performance today, some of the feedback that he gave us as we got a chance to talk to him after the fact. But I want to set this up because, I realize because we've already put this all out to our insiders, and the conversations have already kind of started, so I can get a good sense of where things are going. Because the Bills drafted Dorian Strong, the way that people view these two rookies is, I don't want to say tainted, but affected by how this went in 2022, right? The Bills drafted Kaiir Elam. They made a big investment there in the first round. They traded up for him. They go out in the sixth round. They double dip with Christian Benford, who turns into a guy that they give a huge extension to. They trade Kaiir Elam away. So I think from a fan's perspective, I think everybody's going into this summer watching Dorian Strong versus Maxwell Hairston. Don't let it be like it was before. And I'll be honest, this wasn't a great day for Maxwell Hairston. And I think to the rookie's credit, he came out today immediately after practice and owned it and said, I made a lot of mistakes out there today. I think one of the things that you can get dangerously, it can become dangerous if you get too far into the weeds, into a training camp practice with no pads, to overreact to that kind of situation. And I thought that, listen, he was out there flying around. He was talking to his coaches. They take a lot of what happened in the meeting room and try to get it out onto the practice field and kind of see what things look like. I'm not sitting here overreacting to this. I'm not making this into a Kaiir Elam type situation, so don't overreact. But it wasn't the best day for Maxwell Hairston.
And you already kind of said it. Let's not overreact to one practice, first practice at that for the rookie. He'll get more comfortable as time goes on with the install, with the terminology, with his responsibilities. And, if there was a time for him to be making mistakes, now is the time for him to be doing it. This is where you want him to kind of say, okay, I made a mistake here, and here. He'll learn from it. He'll get better. And you saw an embedded. This is not a Kaiir Elam situation. No offense to Elam. I remember the embeddeds from a few years ago, his interview with the team and all that. You saw how much Brandon Beane and Sean McDermott wanted Maxwell Hairston in that episode of Embedded. This is the guy, they wanted him. They envisioned molding him into this true number one cornerback opposite another true number one cornerback in Christian Benford. And as for Dorian Strong, when he came in for his 30 visit with the Bills, I remember seeing a lot of, draft analysts and things like that. One of the first things they said was perfect fit for Bills' system and scheme. So yeah, for him to come in and pick up things quickly, that doesn't surprise me. It is very reminiscent to Christian Benford and his transition from Villanova to Buffalo because he played in a very similar scheme and system. I think, if anything, Bills fans should be thrilled that, Strong had a good day, because if something were to happen to Hairston or Benford, an injury in season, you can have another rookie that comes off the bench and you feel good about them. Not so much that it's competition, though, for Max Hairston.
Yeah, and I think for Strong, he just is a guy that comes in here. And one of the things that we talked about during the draft process on him, from everything that I read, he's pro ready. This is a guy that in practice, he has the right habits. He's somebody that has played a lot of meaningful snaps over the course of his career, started in really important games in that conference. And you kind of get that vibe watching him out on the practice field. I mean, even going through drills, you see him kind of shooting through drills, knowing what he's supposed to do, watching it once, and then immediately transferring. And if you have that kind of talent in the sixth round, whether or not he ends up being a starter or not, that's the kind of developmental sixth round pick that you want to throw into your system. It is great CB depth. I see Alex Barber making that comment right here. And the thing with Hariston is listen, you could see the speed, you could see the reaction time. It's just like, it wasn't all firing out there today. So I asked him after practice, I said, okay, first practice, you're talking with Jamil Adai, you're talking with, all the coaches on the sideline, you're spending time after practice working on different concepts with Dorian Strong. I mean, it reminded me of Benford and Rasul Douglas all last year. And he said, this was the quote. I asked, what do you have to work on after you went through this practice and you saw the mistakes that you did make? And he said, just having my eyes in the right place, covering the right zone, getting in and out faster, getting used to the cadence and sticking to my fundamentals in live play. Those are the kinds of things to me, Ryan, where that's going to build on itself over the course of training camp. And like, I asked him how much tape he's watched. Not a lot of Bills defense tape that I think over the next 3 months, if you get a chance to put on Christian Ben from last season and see what it looks like, he feels like that's going to be a big key in showing him the picture and then taking that picture and executing it out on the field when practices start for real here in a couple months.
Yeah. Well said, Matt. We have a question here from Penguin about anything specific in terms of Hariston, saying that we didn't say poor practice, but just had an up and down practice, giving up a reception that maybe went for like a longer gain or something along those lines.
Yeah. So there was one play. So here's another part of it and why I take this all with a grain of salt. The Bills ran a period of 7-on-7, a period or two of 11-on-9, where the offense has 11 players and the defense has 9. They're only rushing with 2 defensive linemen. And then at the end, they did one session of 11-on-11. So in all of that combined, I mean, they were out there for an hour and a half. The team drills probably only happened for about 20-ish minutes of camp. So, right. Of the practice. So we're not talking about a huge sample size here either. We're just reacting to what we saw. The Maxwell Hairston play that I think really stood out as something you want to see him make is a short area, like a pass to the left side. And that's another thing, like the quarterbacks that were out there today, they struggled quite a bit. I mean, the throws were kind of all over the place. It wasn't something where, even for defensive backs, you're probably not used to seeing that. Will Rogers and Paxton D. Laurent were the tryout quarterbacks. You're not used to seeing that low-level quarterback play. Even at a mid-level Division I quarterback is probably going to give you better than what we saw out there today. So it was a short area pass, and you just wanted to see him fire off the ball as soon as the play happened, and he just didn't. He was delayed in his reaction. The pass was completed. He tried to fire in and make a play, and the guy it was either the running back or the wide receiver kind of zoomed on the outside of the line and got down the field a bit. I think it was just like once they got out into the team portion of practice, it was just a lot of things were happening. So I'm very interested to see over the OTAs period. We're going to really zero in on Max Hairston as the weeks kind of go by. I wouldn't be shocked if we're talking about a huge jump from what we saw today till, mandatory minicamp in a couple of weeks.
Yeah. More comfort, more tape, more, information with the playbook that will come with due time. And real quick on the quarterback talk too, the Bills had a pivot that, Taylor Algersma was supposed to be one of their training or rookie minicamp quarterbacks, and he signed a contract with the Packers as of yesterday. The Packers had the first week of rookie minicamp. The Bills had the second. He was supposed to attend both. He did so well at Green Bay's that Green Bay offered him a contract, and that's why he had to pull out of Buffalo's rookie minicamp. So I'm sure the Bills were given a heads up a few days in advance, but they certainly had to pivot and go with another route with 2 different quarterbacks here, which I'm sure did not help in the greater scheme of things.
Jim asks how much different the Bills' defensive scheme is to what Hariston used at Kentucky. And the thing is, whether or not we want to get it, I'm not going to get into the specifics of the scheme differences. I don't know. He played in a zone-heavy scheme at Kentucky, but even if just the verbiage is different, that can take a bit of an adjustment period for a guy to come in here, learn all the calls, learn what coaches are saying and what that means in terms of where you're supposed to be out there. The language might be a little bit different. So I think that there's a lot of things that they're trying to figure out. The speed is evident. Like that's something that you could kind of see watching him kind of fire through drills. I sent out a bunch of video clips of the cornerbacks going through drills. And, Dorian Strong was somebody that I think the coach has complimented a couple of times in the way that he was doing his drill work. But Hariston, he flies around out there. He's very fluid. He moves. So I think I'm not worried. I'm not sitting here and saying after this practice that I'm in a spot with Maxwell Hairston where you're worried. All right, let's pivot there, Ryan. And before we get into the other performances that we really wanted to key in on here, I wanted to tell everybody we are just 8 days away from Shout Live at Wingnuts. We're going to preview OTAs in a big way 1 week from tomorrow at Wingnuts on Genesee Street in Cheektowaga, right by the airport. Come out, Google it, come out and find the address. We are going to have a great time at the new location right by the airport. It is a huge space. If the weather's nice, I haven't looked at the weather for next weekend yet, although it looks like it might be raining, so we might not be able to get out on the patio quite yet. But come on, hang out. It's going to be Bills talk, chicken wings, drinks. It's going to be a great night.
Yeah, always a great time at Wingnuts. Where the new location is beautiful. Big space right in the back where Matt and I will be putting on our show, so come and join us.
All right, next up, my favorite Bills draft pick, if you go back and listen to the draft grade, was the big winner of the day today. I absolutely love the pick of Jackson Haws, the tight end out of Georgia Tech. And listen, I talked to him after practice. Everybody talks about this guy's blocking. Nobody's been talking about his hands. And he just goes out there today, again, in a couple of different periods, a couple that obviously favor the offense. 7 targets, Ryan. Jackson Haws had 7 receptions, and none of them were really down the field. There was one seam route where he kind of caught the ball over the middle, maybe 15, 20 yards down the field, really found a way to get into open space and gave these quarterbacks who were struggling for most of the day a chance to make a play. And it was just like his route running, the excitement that you saw on the face of Rob Boris, who's usually a guy that's very reserved in these situations. He's a hard coach. He's been here since the beginning of Sean McDermott's tenure. He coaches his guys hard. I mean, he's been on Dawson Knox and Dalton Kincaid, really had a lot of success with what he's done in that tight end room. He seemed to be elated at what he saw out of Jackson Haws today.
Well, and Haws, man among boys in terms of the size, the violence aspect of it, the fact that he wants to kind of bring on contact as a blocker. I think that also counts in terms of as a receiver. He catches the ball. He's probably not shying away from that, but it's a plus day for him to be showing off that he has quality hands as well. Someone that is in a really good spot to claim that tight end number 3 job here in Buffalo. As much as I like Zach Davidson, love his hands, the blocking aspect is most likely what could hold him back. So Haws has a straight route to not only a roster spot, obviously, but to a role here as a rookie.
But the thing with Haws too is like, I thought, okay, he kind of like rumbles and stumbles, get the ball in his hands, like see like the violence that you spoke to. The fluidity of the way that he moves is different than I was expecting. And I'm wondering if this ends up being a guy that maybe people didn't do their due diligence on. You think about some of the really good tight ends on day 2 and day 3 over the last couple of years. Like, I'm not limiting Haws into this just like Lee Smith role. Like that's what everybody wants. And by the way, shout out to Lee Smith. He was a lot better pass catcher than he's even given credit for. I think Haws kind of falls into that category. And I think with Dawson Knox and Dalton Kincaid in that room, I expect him to get better incrementally over the course of the next couple of months as a pass catcher. He's going to be on this roster. I'm saying 100%. That right now definitively. Yes. But I think he could have even more of a significant role than you think because of what they could potentially do shaking up this room.
Yeah, and the way that they run the ball with the blocking and the value he brings there. But when they go out in those heavy packages and they look like they're going to run the ball, it'd be a benefit if they have a tight end like Haws who looks the part of that blocker, but can also go out and catch those touchdown passes on the play actions, and he's just wide open. So to hear that he had good hands today, that's always an encouraging sign where he's always going to bring it from the blocking perspective. We
got some breaking news here. I just want to get your reaction to it. And I apologize if it's my internet or your internet. I think one of us is a little bit glitchy. I don't know if you're having any problems with me. No. Okay. You look great then. So some breaking news. The Texans just released former Bills, I believe 6th-round draft pick, Nick Broker, interior offensive lineman, guy that could probably play all 5 spots. Is that somebody you think the Bills maybe want to bring back into the situation if they get him? There's 2 open roster spots right now. I know we talked a lot about Gabe Davis the other day on the podcast. What do you think about a guy like Nick Broker, who is a former draft pick of them? They lost as a rookie because they just didn't have any spots for him. They had to cut him at final roster cut down. I think that could be an intriguing guy that you bring into camp to kind of push like a Kendrick Green or, an Alec Anderson, although, Alec Anderson's making this team, but more competition on that interior offensive line group.
Wouldn't shock me one bit because of the competition aspect of it. Former draft pick, the Bills liked him enough at that point in time to select him. But, there's been a few linemen over the years that they've lost that, one was claimed on waivers years ago by the Eagles, and he's bounced around the league since then. I'm blanking on his name. But Broker, yeah, thank you. Well, look at you just pulling that name out of the hat. Broker, yeah, why not bring him in if you felt like he was a good enough player to draft from a few years ago, bring him in to compete for a roster spot. Could always claim a practice squad spot too if he can't win one of those roster spots on this team. So why not at least evaluate him, see where he's at this point in his career?
All right. So we talked about Jackson Haws, a big day for him. And another guy had a huge day, Ryan. I didn't really know what to expect from Caden Prather because you watch some of his highlights, and those highlights, they're usually plucked for a reason, right? It really stands out. The way that he moves, the contested catchability. What I really liked about him today is these quarterbacks were dying to dump the ball off into the flat, right? Get the ball out of their hands. Jackson Haws, right? Just an easy target early in the passing game. Caden Prather had 3 or 4 opportunities today, and he took advantage of every single one of them. One of them was a sensational sideline grab where he was working in a contested catch situation with one of the tryout cornerbacks. And on an earlier play, he absolutely dusted one of the tryout cornerbacks. I don't have his name up. I got to bring it up, and I'll bring it up in a second. Ryan, he bodied him. He big boyed him early in the route, sent him to the ground, and then got separation. And the throw was so bad, he had to adjust his route on a deep pattern down the field, adjust back to the play. He slides into the play. A defensive back kind of gets boxed out of it, and he makes this sliding grab. Caden Prather looked great today. I didn't get a chance to talk to him. I'm looking forward to that over the next couple of weeks. But this is a guy that's going to be really fun to watch this summer because he's going to battle. I think I want to see his competitive spirit, but in terms of being able to compete in those contested catch situations, he's going to be somebody that fans are going to want to find 81 on their roster card when they get to St. John Fisher in a couple months.
And making a great first impression as your final, the final pick of Buffalo's draft. That's a great way to start off for him today, making plays down the field. And, this was before the Elijah Moore signing, but after the Bills picked Prather, someone close to him, I was talking to them and they said, he's going to make that roster. I'm like, I like the confidence. They're like, no, he's a lot better than where he fell in this draft. He's someone that's going to be a steal for the Bills. And you all, play people that are close to players. You always take that with a grain of salt, but so far so good. And like you said, come training camp, come preseason, how does he look out there? Does he look the part? Is he competing? If so, we know the Bills don't carry a big number of wide receivers, but he could force his way onto this roster.
Couple people asking about Jordan Hancock. Didn't notice him a ton today. He was on the field with Hariston on a few plays, and Hariston actually talked about how great their communication was. He's somebody that he got close to during the draft process, so they already kind of built up a relationship. I can't get into where he specifically lined up. And of course, that's going to be a big topic of conversation because is he going to be a safety? Is he going to be a slot corner? He played some boundary corner in college, but they see him more in that kind of safety role, as Brandon Beane said. So it'll be interesting to see if he moves around, even wherever he lined up today, because there's some reporting guidelines. We can't get into all the specifics. And sometimes you could kind of fit the pieces together if you look at the pictures that the Bills post.
And the videos,
and videos, stuff like that. And you'll see it when we get out to training camp. And I'm sure at some point one of the coaches will kind of reveal their vision for him. And when they come out with the first depth chart right before the preseason game, you'll also get a look at it from that perspective. But, I think he could do both things. And I think they're going to try him out at both things over the course of this summer in the offseason program. How much can he kind of download and potentially be that safety in that room? Or is it something where his quick twitch ability, you want to see him in the slot a little bit more? He's probably going to be a depth player. It's just going to be where he ends up being most comfortable.
Yeah, and you already mentioned it, but Bills fans, just when the Bills release those video clips, That's your best indicator now. Training camp, times where we have guidelines that we cannot give specifics. That's where you get your clues and indications. And obviously, training camp open to the public. There's a lot of people in the stands that report things as well. But as Matt said, we have things where we cannot say where specifically they lined up. But the fact that he is a Swiss Army knife of sorts and can play all over is going to benefit him for sure.
All right, so a lot of questions in the insider chat about, all right, who looked good or bad UDFA wise, because the Bills actually announced 12 signings of their undrafted free agents today. You had reported on most of those, had them in our tracker, so people that were following that had a good look at that. Guy who struggled today, Ryan, wide receiver Kelly Akahari. I think he had 4 targets and kind of made up for 3 drops throughout practice and ended up making a catch later on in the teamwork to kind of at least make it not a total loss of a day. Right. But that's the kind of performance that kind of stands out to you. And you're kind of looking at that as, is he going to be somebody that's able to kind of make an impression over the next couple of weeks? Because we've seen it before. They've signed undrafted free agents, and as they're maneuvering around on this roster, a guy like Nick Broker comes available, and they're at 89. They have roster spots available right now. But once they get to that 91 limit, because they have Travis Clayton as part of the international pathway, now you're starting to think about making this roster as good as possible. A guy that might be falling behind like that is somebody that could be on the bubble there if they're having a couple of bad practices.
And we've seen how the Bills turn over later in the year, the practice squad, but even leading up throughout the year, leading up to training camp, guys become available. Someone gets cut, they move on from someone. So this is a very fluid situation. You need to make good first impressions and good impressions anytime you can. So to have 3 drops, not necessarily a good way to start off, but hopefully a chance for him to, rebound and improve as well.
We're so excited about the Comedy Center being an official sponsor of Shout. Definitely head out to Jamestown, wherever you're at in Western or Central New York. It is really something that you could do on a day trip, like a weekend. If you want to make a long weekend out of it, go check it out. They have so many different events. It's a museum experience like none other, Ryan, and we're super excited to get out there in the next couple of weeks. Once things kind of calm down Bills-wise, we're going to try to put a day event out or together and hopefully link up with some Bills fans as well.
Yeah, hopefully we can get a good turnout there, but I'm just very excited to check out everything inside of this museum. It has been hyped up over the years as one of the best new attractions in the U.S., and I've heard nothing but good things.
So quickly before we get out of here on the defensive line. So this wasn't a great practice to really dive into, think about it. They haven't drafted a lot of defensive linemen over the last couple of years. I mean, Dwayne Carter was somebody to think about last year. Javon Solomon as well. I found it interesting that neither of those guys were out there today. Sometimes at rookie minicamp, you see like a late day 2 or day 3 pick out there working in with folks. There was none of those guys today. All the guys that were out there that were sophomores were UDFAs last year. So Frank Gore Jr., to Corey Couch, Daquan Hardy. So he was actually a day 3 guy that was out there. Right. Kind of goes to show you the starting point for him. He spent the last year on practice squad. But for defensive line, 7-on-7, they're not out there. 11-on-9, you're only rushing 2 on one side. And then 11-on-11 was only 1 session of 11-on-11. So hard to really extrapolate too much. TJ Sanders, I think he only might have had 1 snap during 11-on-11, and it might have been a running play and not even anywhere near him. Landon Jackson, I noticed him on 1 snap, and he kind of lost his footing a little bit, but again, not something you can really overreact to. We'll get a better sense of this as they kind of have an uptick in some of the team drills over the next couple of weeks when OTAs start.
Yeah, you mentioned it already. I mean, you're not getting the best lineman out there. You're not really going at full speed when it comes to getting after the quarterback in these drills necessarily. So as time goes on, we'll get a better look at Landon Jackson, these defensive tackles. Sanders, Walker, they're gonna bring along slowly, as Brandon Bean mentioned. So maybe not as much of him, but that's an area that you get more of as time goes on, closer to the summer.
Yeah, and a question here from Cash on Hardy and Couch. I think first and foremost, leading the individual drills, they look comfortable, right? Like this is old hat for them. They're serving in the role that Tyrell Shavers served in last year in the wide receiver room when he kind of like led that group, and they were putting him in kind of like a a leadership position. So this could be a good sign for Hardy and Couch. Couch is somebody that they loved last year. He had a couple of plays, like he mixed it up on a couple of plays. No big defensive back breakup plays. As a matter of fact, let me look through my notes here and make sure that I'm not forgetting something. But I think this is a really important summer for both of those guys. I mean, Hardy is somebody that was a cut last year. They like him in the slot. He's got some return ability. So this is a very big summer for both these guys.
Yeah, huge summer for him. And I remember him being a little bit of a surprise cut. A lot of people thought that Hardy was going to be the backup slot corner behind Taron Johnson. It just didn't happen. And the Bills were able to get him on the practice squad, keep him there throughout the year. So this is a big year for him. So to come out here now, lead the drills, as you mentioned, get off on a good start, that's going to help him when it comes to battling for some roster spots at some pretty deep positions on this Bills team. They've added some really good defensive backs, so it'll be a challenge.
Yeah, the one note that I have for Hardy was he was the closest in coverage on one of those, or on the really nice Caden Prather catch. So not the greatest day for the defensive backs, but again, very offense focused. We'll get a chance. I think it's not next week, but the week after is when OTAs happen. So we're going to preview OTAs at Wingnuts a week from tomorrow, Saturday, May 17th, a little bit later start for the event, 6:30 event start. We'll start the show at about 7:15. Come out, hang out, check out the new Wingnuts location. Shout out to our friend Ashley Petty on social media, who is going and working at Wingnuts now. So we'll see her at one of those locations. We're excited about that. The show is going to be great. I love the summer shows at Wingnuts. It's a great vibe. We got some other things cooking for live shows this summer, this off season. This is when things ramp up, man. It's going to be super fun for a couple of weeks.
Yep, cannot wait. Live shows all over the place for sure. And who knows when that preseason schedule comes out, which should be, I would think, maybe before the regular season schedule. Maybe we can even look at those 2 road games and see if we can get something worked out for those. That'd be pretty fun.
Definitely. Schedule comes out next week. We'll have more on that then. I'm working on a guest for early next week. I'll keep it a surprise, and we will see you guys all next week. Head to the National Comedy Center. And if you do, let us know how it goes. We can't wait to get out there. Take care, everybody.